Hello and you're very welcome to the JMac podcast. I'm John Wan. Of course, this podcast is brought to you by Orgaretcha.com and Atak.ie. Use the promo code JMac podcast to get 15% off on Orgaretcha.com and get the best skins, gloves, equipment on Atak.ie. Be attack-minded. And today I'm joined by three-time All-Ireland winner Enda McGinley to talk about the GAA season so far, his stint with the amateur footballers and all that's going on. We're just after finishing off a very busy week with Galway and Armagh. The hype around it ended, so it's been a mad week GAA-wise, but it's an absolute pleasure having you on, my man. How are you keeping?
Yeah, good, John. Good. It was definitely a busy week now. The county season really seemed to catch fire now last week, and with Tailteann and everyone else, it's been a couple of really good weeks and hopefully a couple more to come.
Yeah, absolutely, my man. Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's been mad now. So obviously we're a couple of days away from the All Ireland quarterfinals that took place in Croke Park last Saturday and Sunday. I suppose the same to the lads earlier on in the week. You'd 1 out of 4 ain't bad, I suppose, good games wise, but there's only kind of one place to really kind of touch on. Enda, you'd an absolutely unbelievable game of football between Armagh and Galway. I know obviously the eye gouge and bits and pieces that happened, but oh my God, Enda, what a game of ball.
Yeah, it was phenomenal, and it was probably phenomenal because both teams were making wee mistakes. Galway obviously got a whole lot of mistakes right at the very end of the game in terms of the failure to deal with consecutive high balls. But it was the fact that it was open. Armagh were obviously playing their normal game style. There was plenty of turnovers, and with that, both teams got a real go at each other. Obviously, a lot of football, some of the even top teams, it's much more controlled. And when it's very, very controlled, you see less of that helter-skelter type game that just is brilliant because you have so much quality in the modern games. Modern players are so fit, they're so skillful that whenever they really let the shackles go off and both teams really go at it, it can be a stunning spectacle. And that's what we got between Armagh and Galway. You were sort of hoping it would be like that coming into it. And the fact that it turned out like that was a brilliant surprise. But I'm sure, like you guys watching at home on TV, by the end of it, you were fatigued. I was fatigued. It was by the end of it, by the penalties and everything. And you're thinking, God, Kerry and Mayo to come, and you were nearly thinking, jippers, how am I going to get through another game here? Now it didn't live up to the billing.
Thank God it nearly didn't end it. Thank God it nearly didn't. God.
Absolutely. But phenomenal game of football that will live long in the memory. Tough in Armagh to go out that way, but they've brought a huge amount to the season. They'll be, when the dust settles, there is going to be one winner out of it, but they'll know that they have made a couple of significant steps towards that goal, and I think they'll now really feel that All Ireland is right on the horizon. Whether they get there or not, there's lots of teams get close, and there's only very few teams get there, but they'll feel it's very much within their orbit now.
Absolutely, and I suppose obviously the game itself, it just, as we were saying a couple of sets ago, it had absolutely everything, and obviously the fracas aside, it was one of the best games of football we've seen. We've seen defensive mistakes, we've seen some of the best points ever scored. Croke Park, Rian O'Neill kicking the point at the end to draw it all up, just sensational cojones maybe, as a man says. But terrific stuff, and it was just an mouth-watering game.
Yeah, and it was. I think
I've just lost your camera there, Enda. Sorry, I think I've lost your camera. Yeah.
Sorry.
No problem. Yeah, all good. Yeah, shoot it.
Yeah. No, I think it was the fact that even that, Rian obviously got that stunning point at the end, but he had been relatively quiet. I thought him and his man had a phenomenal battle, and probably Galway would have been happy with how they were managing that. Even Stephen Campbell was kept fairly quiet, but it was other players were really stepping up to play, and particularly for Galway, Comer and Walsh kept fairly quiet, you'd have to say. But then McDade and Finnerty, stunning players, and to see these players emerge on such a big stage, that's exciting for everybody else, because suddenly you have more players to be aware of, you have more top level skill to see boys really seizing the moment on the big stage, and it certainly sets up what's going to be a phenomenal semi-final between them and Derry. Really intriguing, brings everything that is the modern game, all of the various tactical situations that you come in, we sort of know what Derry's going to come with, and that's a phenomenal challenge for Pádraic Joyce to try and take down. It'll be really interesting to see how he sets up to try and take down Derry, because Derry are coming like a team on a mission. The energy they're bringing to the game, the energy that Gallagher's bringing on the sideline, it is a very, very potent mix, and they're actually the form team in the championship at the minute. They're the form team in the country at the minute. So those other teams, Kerry and Dublin included, they have to find form. you have to get your top players finding form, and whenever the season is so tight, that just doesn't happen at the click of a finger, you know. So Derry's in a good place. They'll know it. They'll not fear Galway. That league beating that they took from Galway up in Owen Begg sets that tie up lovely. Gallagher, you would nearly swear a man like him almost planned it somehow. I know he couldn't have foreseen it, but the way it's planned out, and even the row, the appeals coming from that, whatever suspensions has been handed down, that's all sort of a distraction on Galway's behalf too, and it's almost inevitable to make lose a player or two from it. And that all plays into the Derry hand as well, you know. So certainly we've two huge semi-finals coming up for very different reasons, but it'll be a phenomenal weekend.
Yeah, no, that's kind of the same. At the start, we probably expected maybe 3 tight games. Obviously, Derry Clare turned out the way it did. We knew what Dublin Cork was going to turn out, and obviously, you know, Galway, Armagh, and then Kerry and Mayo, we definitely expected a lot more bite. But I suppose touching briefly back on to like the Armagh game, Enda, like it just had it all. And I suppose maybe game smarts, game cuteness. And I suppose you were involved in unbelievable Tyrone teams over the years, and you know, maybe Shane Walsh is kind of. We kind of brain farts maybe at the end and game management. Enda.
Desperate. Really surprising from Shane Walsh. He seemed to have several different options, and he took the riskiest by far and then failed to execute it. Now, Shane Walsh is one of those players that usually executes those things. But even if he had have executed it, still would have, like, he could have went on down the wing. The Armagh player wasn't closing him down too much. I think he had an option on ahead of him on that wing, or he could come back out round and come right out round and just hold the ball. So it seemed an unnecessary risk at a critical stage of the game from your most experienced player, and then to just compound the fact that he didn't execute, the pass didn't come off at all. That gave Armagh the chance, but look, then it was just a classic sort of catalogue of errors. Like they say that the biggest failures or the biggest crashes don't come from just one mistake. It's usually a catalogue of things, and by God, Galway done that. They lost. They obviously had some high ball issues coming into the game anyway. Armagh hadn't really tested that too much earlier in the game. In fact, Galway seemed to have tested Ethan Rafferty much more in terms of the high ball earlier in the game, and he had dealt with it in his own unique way. He was coming flying for everything. When the high ball landed in then on top of Gleeson, he wasn't protected by the Galway defence, and that allowed Armagh get the chance. But there's slices of luck in that too. The ball had to bounce exactly where it had to bounce. It had to come back to exactly the right player who hit it. So all of that, but it gave Armagh the lifeline that Galway didn't need to be given them.
Yeah, no, I think you run to the corner, or at least give it to the man right beside you, or go for the point, because I think even like if he went for the shot and went wide, that's as good as the point at that stage of the game ended. So,
absolutely, and with his pace,
yeah,
the Armagh defender was never going to come in.
He could have
take
burnt
on him because he would have burnt
maybe
him.
His legs were gone. Yeah.
You know, but as I say, look, Shane Walsh has done a heck of a lot more right than wrong this year.
True.
I wouldn't put it past him that he could have a massive say in the semi-final either. Though Derry have plenty of men ready to target him as well, you know. So, but it was a mistake, and I'm sure he's kicking himself. No more than Gleeson will have been kicking himself about the goals being given away too. And there's Galway defenders there to answer questions too. But they've survived, and they've got the right to fix those things. And listen, if they get past Derry, for both Derry and Galway, that's dreamland territory to be in an Ireland final. So Galway will be able to focus on that.
Yeah, chatting to a fella earlier on as well, but kind of Galway's keeper, and I know it's not good to kind of single out lads, but I think if Galway, I don't know, the goalkeeper position will, going forward, they will really need to shore it up, because, you know, he did really have a couple of brain farts maybe in like that game against Armagh, so they really will need to get that situation sorted, because the 2 high balls that came in, he was caught napping.
He was, but his one major mistake was the ball he actually caught and then fisted out. Where he didn't get he wasn't probably composed enough just in that. How much the previous goal had unsettled him is hard to know, but he got it down, and then when he fell to the ground, he just literally very loosely cleared his lines, and it went straight to an Armagh fella. For the first goal, he he wasn't protected at all by the defenders, and then you are a sitting duck as a goalie on the line with the ball coming down from such height and players running in on top of you. There was 2 Galway defenders nearby that didn't offer them any protection. Like, rule 1 really is, if it's going to your goalkeeper, you have to protect your goalkeeper. You have to stop the man getting a clean run at your goalkeeper, because there's very little a goalkeeper can do in that scenario when you're not able to come running at it with any sort of strength and get the knee up to protect yourself, which he couldn't. The angle that ball was coming at. Then the third goal, it was the high one that dropped on the 14 and it bounced there. And again, the Galway wing back, I forget his name now, he came reeling in, completely missed the ball. So again, inevitably it ends up with the goalie's responsibility. The goalie should be bossing that area. The goalie should be instilling confidence in the defenders, and certainly Galway looked devoid of confidence in dealing with the high ball. But in terms of direct errors on his behalf, there was probably only one, primarily, was his. But inevitably, it's certainly going to make them look for it. And it was a bit of an issue that had been identified beforehand. So unfortunately for him, but look, he's a chance to. I was sort of almost hoping that he could emerge the hero in the penalty shootout and save one of them. But
same with that,
Armagh hit one over the bar and one off the post, and that there, so he didn't even get to make the save to sort of redeem himself. But look, he's got a full 70 minutes coming up against Derry, and let's be frank, I would have fully assumed Derry will unleash an odd high ball in.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, no, you can see. I think Uri Gallagher, that'll be worked on the training ground, no doubt. And I suppose Armagh, and obviously, like, they were coming in, like, they were very, very confident. Obviously, we get to see the fans during the week. There were, I think, some of my Armagh mates were nearly booking hotel tickets for the Skyline for the All Ireland final. God be good to the Mendes. So
yeah, John, absolutely. And funny, I was on doing a bit on a Friday evening on the radio, and that was my one sense. And I thought, I couldn't believe how nicely it was set up for Galway, for Park Joyce, who had done some great work over the years, and the real definite building, had a really impressive Division 2 campaign, had that really impressive result against Derry, and had won Connacht in fairly impressive fashion. I'd watched a couple of their games, analysed a few of their games, and their shooting and the threat that they were carrying, how well they were set up as a team, I thought they were really, really impressive. And yet they were coming in, and because of the nature of Armagh and the style that Armagh were playing their football with, all the talk was about Armagh, all the excitement was saviours of Gaelic football and all of this here. And I'm thinking, from a Park Joyce and a Galway point of view, this is absolutely perfect. If you could write the script for how you'd want to come into it, this is how it was. So certainly Armagh, there was a lot of pressure, a lot of expectation on them, and the bottom line, they failed to live up to it. Yes, the game ended exciting, but Galway were the dominant team. Armagh started really well, were well ahead, and Galway seemed to be struggling up front, but more and more the Galway defence got to grips with them, and Galway were the team. Like, for 40 odd minutes of that game, Galway were the better side, until they went and pulled the pin out of the grenade in the last 5 minutes, or really into injury time,
And I suppose it's with the future for Armagh as well, and obviously they obviously did play a very good game of football, and fairness, never say die attitude, and they just kept going, they kept playing till the final minutes, so you have to give them a lot of credit with that end. And obviously Kieran McGinley very disappointed after the game, but look, I feel they will be back, but it'll be interesting with Geezer's future.
Look, they're missing several players too. Like, Armagh had quite an injury list this year, so like, they reached really, really high performance levels. I think they did have a bit of a dip in that quarter final. I think they'll be disappointed with their overall performance in that match. But they have several other key players waiting to come back in as well. So when you look at the entire thing, I know there was questions about McGinley, and there was questions if he didn't get overdone in goal, and there was a lot of that type of chat going on. Any manager, it was so funny. I met a fella. It was a patient came into a hospital, and inevitably they want to see you, and they want to talk about a ball then with you. Forget about my knee. Let's talk football.
My leg could be hanging off, but I want to talk football.
Oh, absolutely. Next thing he was just saying, we need rid of McGinley. McGinley's terrible. And this was quite early on in the year, and I was thinking they were phenomenal in large parts in Division 1 and everything else, and I was just at a wry smile to myself and thought, like any manager, there will be people out there that you're not for, and they just want rid of you, and you couldn't do any right. So But I think anybody looking in with any semblance of a sense will see a group of players that are very much playing for him. They'll see definite progress, huge progress. Yeah. They'll see a team that seems to be embracing now and ready for the next step. A good management setup overall, like so. And yes, there's a couple of obviously strong candidates there waiting in the wings, but it's hard to think that McGinley's race is run. Like I certainly would have no semblance of that at all.
Yeah, no, I think he's there, and it'd just be interesting to Kieran Donaghy if he stays on for another year. I think that'll be a huge addition as well. And we see Kieran McKeever. I suppose Galway, it was a terrific win, all to go to the All-Ireland semi-final against Derry. Unforeseen kind of territory in the last couple of years. Enda, so the sky's the limit for Pádraig Joyce and the Galway men, and obviously it's well deserved.
Yeah, and again, a wee bit like Derry, they have more players coming on form. Some of them fringe players you'll expect Comer and Walsh to have top players whenever they have quiet games. They often followed up with strong games, but I thought defensively they were excellent. I thought their tackling and how compact they were in defence, like Armagh have a very, very vaunted forward line, and I thought Galway essentially neutralised that bar in the first maybe 10 minutes or so. So I thought their defence was very, very impressive. You've got the high ball issue, and unfortunately that is a wee bit of Achilles heel, because that does rob you of that confidence and leaves you vulnerable to that. Ironically, because Derry plays such a controlled brand of football and look to hit you on the counter, that high ball situation is Derry wouldn't like to be just lumping in high ball, because that's essentially, yes, you're looking for that goal, but you're also more than likely than not giving a turnover to the opposition, which Derry don't want to do. They want to hold possession. Their stats, and I don't know what their stats was in the Clare game. I'm sure it was very, very strong. But again, Donegal, it was phenomenal that over 90% of attacks ending in shots, which showed a huge ability to control their own possession and an unwillingness to just cough it up. So yes, Galway have a slight weakness from a high ball scenario, and that nervousness, no matter how much work Galway do on it over the next couple of weeks, that nervousness will still be there. But it's almost against the Derry psyche to just lump it in. They're a more controlled team than that.
That's
so it'll be really
interesting
to see how much Rory Gallagher will use that. I think it'll be something they'll use. They'll know they can go to if they're in a spot of bother in the game. Maybe they're looking that goal and they're not able to break down. Maybe Galway do sit deep, and then it becomes that game of chess. They might turn to it then.
We can't get away from it, Enda. It's obviously the elephant in the room. It's probably took up a lot of time with a lot of people, and obviously we see the tweets, the social media, and it's been a massive fallout probably since the game. The eye gouge incident with Tyrone and Kelly, and I know there was so much kind of stuff going on, and it was amazing how they only booked the two captains. But your views on that, Enda?
Views on that, we'll stick to the classic thing. Yeah, unseemly. In terms of the melee itself, I didn't think there was a huge amount in it.
No,
it was more pushing and shoving. Ideally, it doesn't happen. The dressing room issues on the same side is a bit of an issue with that. But I don't think there was a huge amount involved. I think there probably was up to 80 different people involved, and was there maybe one or two definite instances that probably would deserve looking at. The eye gouging thing, look, that was a line that was crossed, and it was funny. One of the Tyrone lads that you're well familiar with now in Cavan, like he had occasionally a tendency to step over the line as well.
Oh Christ! I'd say actually it was the cracking Christy along the line up in Carrigan Park. How did that go?
No, he was grand. I think he more felt sorry for me that day, I think. But I remember there was one day he had went and done something a bit crazy. And I was chatting to me, and him would be very great. Like, I was chatting, yes, man, what were you at? And he says, I don't know, just something came over me. I just done it, and as soon as I done it, I thought, what am I at? And sometimes players just have that edge in them, and they end up doing stuff, and they'll immediately regret it. I have no doubt at all that Tailteann Kelly's in that boat. In terms of the media onslaught and the social media onslaught, that's unfortunately part of the world we live in, and I think it has to make us very aware of how tough it is to be a county footballer and how your life is under a microscope, and anything you step out, be it socially. We've seen the down footballers getting pinned in social media because they went out for drinks. So even if a county player misbehaved at a wedding or misbehaves on a night out or anything like that, somebody will have a video of it and it up. When you misbehave in Croke Park with about probably 20 different cameras on you, you're absolutely destined for getting your back cut out of you. So it's a tough place for him to be. Vincent itself, not good. It was a line that was well crossed and it will be punished. My issue with the punishment and with the jumping up and down brigade is that if the GAA disciplinary thing is going to emerge from a era where it's been completely ineffective because of the strength of the success rate of appeals being brought against it, if it's going to emerge from that, it has to move away from the apparent impulse suspensions that it seems to hand out and how much it seems to correlate with the bigger the public shout, the bigger the GAA suspensions. And if it does that, it's going to continue to feel that it's only responding to public demand, which is not where a disciplinary or a legal system should be. It has to be above that. So it'll be interesting to see what length of suspensions are handed out. If it's a suspension that seems in keeping with what has went before and seems appropriate for a bad task, but a bad action, then fair enough. If it's completely out of kilter with that and seems sort of just in response to the hysterics that we're seeing over the past week, then I think Armagh will appeal it and we'll be back to once again seeing an effective disciplinary process, which for me is the bigger issue.
So was that's the whole point as well, the inconsistency of it all, and it kind of drive you up the walls to the degree. But yeah, it'll be interesting now next couple of days. And obviously we had Kerry Mayo, in fairness, on Sunday as well. Ended, maybe it was a great game to calm us all down a bit. Kerry got over the line. We had a half man, kind of David Clifford. He scores one of the best goals we've seen in Croke Park. So they're moving okay.
Stunning, wasn't it? Yeah, they're going okay. Clifford, by the looks of things, sort of jarred the ankle obviously early doors, and I sort of know that injury. It's like an impingement type thing in the ankle. It can be very, very sore, but it can also settle, and then away on you go. He'll be likely a wee bit sore afterwards, and he'll be a wee bit vulnerable to it being sore. And funny, I was thinking at the time, knowing the injury, I was thinking at the time they should nearly take him off, let it settle.
That's just
20 minutes, half an hour, tape it up, and then he'd be back on for maybe the final 20-25 minutes. Of course, they stayed on, and he scored. Like, it was a gorgeous goal. Like, so much of what Clifford does, why it's so good, he is so beautiful to watch. He just does things with such a...
He kind of is like the Messi of GAA, isn't it?
It is just, it's really frustrating for us mere mortals that the game, the game had an effort to it, and the skills had an effort to it, whereas the top players, it looks effortless. And he's got that, like, his pace really surprised me for that goal. Like, he just left the Mayo players for dead, and then just the composure and the quality of the strike at the end, like, it's too good. It is too good. Other than that, then Sean O'Shea obviously was playing. Kerry looked good without ever looking as if they were a team in absolute top gear. Mayo, a wee bit like Tyrone, a wee bit like Donegal. For me, all year you were sort of looking at the impact of the forwards they were missing, and you were seeing the old issues in terms of their scoring power and the issues there, and you're sort of thinking, okay, only Mayo could maybe suddenly click, but the click never came. And then they, a wee bit like Donegal and Tyrone, as I say, it was more almost a case of getting put out of their misery, as it was just a team that was never getting into their stride. That's it, season over. And for them, the James Horn era coming to an end is massive over there. Like, he's been absolutely immense for them, and he's given the game so many good days, like absolute iconic performances from them, to be the team that eventually killed off Dublin. Not that killed them off, but certainly broke them for that 1 year at least. To be the manager to have done that, to have most sort of challenged that all-conquering Dublin side, and to end without an All-Ireland, it's tough. It's very tough on him, but I don't think anybody would be seeing anything other than an incredible management era from him.
Are you impressed with Kerry so far? And obviously they really haven't been tested, and obviously last Sunday was a bit of a damn squib of a game. So it'll be very interesting now against Dublin in a few weeks' time, and we'll kind of see the full deck of cards. I think if they'll need David Clifford fit for that game, make no qualms about it, and obviously Conor Callan too. But from the Dublin end of things, but Kerry, massive pressure this year. Jack O'Connor's come back, to win All Ireland. So time will tell next week.
Yeah, you just, as you said, John, the key thing is for me as a neutral looking in, you want all those players fit and fully fit. You want Jack, or you want McCarthy there, you want Con there, you want Clifford fully fit, you want all them boys out. If all them boys are fit, this has the potential to be a game of the ages. This is a game of almost been waiting 3-4 years for. Dublin have a chip on the shoulder. They're focused. You can tell there's a focus. You can tell there's a determination with them. Yes, they're maybe not the team that they were. They don't have that same strength and depth. They do need Con in terms of just that extra bit of spark and difference that he brings to the forward line. But if Dublin are there, their heads are going to be really, really on it. Kerry, they've been hunting Kerry, as the top dogs in the game. They have not liked the fact that mantle has passed to Dublin, that they've got that 6 in a row thing now over Kerry. Jack O'Connor said as much in the post-game interview. He said our boys were probably yearning for that Dublin game. So with that, I think it's set up for a huge semi-final. Kerry didn't hit top notes against Dublin. They were very impressive for a lot of the National League, and yet really, really strangely, Tyrone turned them over down there in their last game. Yes, phenomenal, a great performance by Tyrone that day, but that to me still creates that question mark over this Kerry team. Brilliant, brilliant team, but are they able to compete with the really top teams whenever the really top teams are on it as well? Or do they run out of ground, if you know what I mean? And I think we'll find out that answer if Dublin come with a fully fit panel in the semi-final. We're going to have to see something different. Dublin, we know can win that game if they play to the potential, but we'll have to see something. If Dublin are playing at their full potential, we're going to have to see Kerry produce something that we haven't seen this current Kerry team produce. Are they capable of it? Absolutely. But until they do it, the question marks remain. And those, for I suppose at times you would have come through that in my own career with Tyrone, those are special, special moments whenever you have to ultimately stand up and answer that question as a team. Those are the days you yearn for. Those are the days you live for. And you have to take them on. And if Kerry embrace that, as I say, it could be a phenomenal game.
I feel though if Con's not fit for Dublin, I think I give Kerry a massive chance. There could be vice versa with Clifford as well. And James Horan obviously has stepped down as the Mayo manager. Enda, no massive surprise, and obviously you could nearly feel like it's the end of an era for a lot of them lads, and we've seen kind of Lee Keegan on the pitch after McLaughlin and like the likes of Aidan O'Shea. So just a serious rebuilding job, and the next man, look, it's a massive job he has in his hands.
It is. Mayo, I suppose we've been saying that Mayo will be needing to do that rebuilding job in a while, but potentially James Horan, that's sometimes that's the catalyst, and then you get a quick domino effect. The likes of Keegan, like again this year, he was just phenomenal. I would imagine if you're a Mayo manager coming in, you're probably doing more maybe to keep Keegan than almost any of those others. They have got a good batch of younger players coming in. Obviously, Ryan O'Donoghue, Tommy Conroy, if them boys come back in, suddenly that's almost immediately helping you. They did win the under-21, I think it was, still then, not under-20, under-21 All-Ireland several years ago. So there should be a good batch of players there. They will still have fanatical support, but it will feel like a wee bit of a beginning of a new era. And it will, for those players, whatever number of those players do step away, again, it's tough to see players of that ilk step away without having got that medal in their hands that they do deserve. That many of us players that went before and have a couple of medals deserve much less than them boys. But unfortunately, on some occasions, they did not bring it on the big stage, like particularly even last year against Tyrone. They did not bring it.
Don't know what it is, and I don't know what it is. Don't know what it is.
And then on another day, when they did bring it, they got the worst possible luck, 2 own goals. Like, I don't think I'll ever get my head around how a team can concede 2 own goals in Gaelic football and lose a match still narrowly. So that they've been incredibly unlucky, and then at other times they have definitely been the authors of their own misfortune.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what the future holds for Mayo. And obviously, another 2 games, Dublin Cork, briefly on them as well. Enda, were you surprised much learnings are taken from the Dublin Cork game?
Cork put in a very decent performance for a large proportion of it, and that's good to see. You would hope that there's something there for them to build on. They've got 2 really good forwards in Hurley and Sherlock in there, and they caused bother once again. I'm a wee bit surprised Dublin, like Cork, were clearly reliant on those 2 men, and Dublin would have known that. And Dublin failed to shut those 2 men down. That's a wee bit of a worry when you're coming in then against Kerry, who likewise have key men that you have to be able to shut down. And Dublin weren't able to do that against Cork, and these are better players again that Kerry are coming in with. So that'll be a wee bit of a concern for Dublin. But again, it just felt like a game they always knew they would win, and they went through the motions, and they always knew that their big test is in the next game. So they weren't overly impressive. They've been impressive in the other games to date this year in the Championship. They've been relegated. They've only played Division 2 teams or lower so far in the Championship. So there is still questions about this Dublin side in terms of this year's edition. And if Kerry bring a full game, then that's going to test Dublin massively. But you just get the sense that Dublin are waiting for that test. They are wanting that test. And that gives them their chance to put a lot of stuff that has been written about them, and the joy that people have had in their demise, and in the fact that we are in a post-Dublin era. Dublin will be remembering all of that, and this is their game to show that they haven't gone away.
Save Con for the Kerry game?
Potentially, like I'm sure everybody's heard various rumours about it. I've heard patella, I've heard hamstring. Both of them wouldn't be great injuries to be carrying into a game. So if he was carrying a slight hamstring strain, that would be the only one I would be happy enough that, save him and he'll be fully good to go. But if it was a hamstring actual re-injury, or if there was this, I heard one rumour about patella fracture, something like that there, those aren't things you'd want to be carrying into, or that you'll shift easily to suddenly be back at your peak performance. But Con strikes you as a very, very tough, robust player. So if he's available at all, he's somebody that would just relish such a big game. He would relish the fight and the challenge that this game brings. So certainly from a neutral point of view, you would just hope that he's there, because he does change that Dublin team.
Derry Clare, Enda. Obviously, we expected it to be a lot more tighter than it ended up, and obviously it was a very, very ruthless performance by Rory Gallagher's Derry, and maybe a signal of intent as well. It was just unbelievable goals galore, and Benny Heron bagging again. So on the go, Enda.
Yeah, Derry, and you could sort of sense it. Derry are, as you would know, we all know in Ulster they're a serious footballing mad county. The passion and strength that they have for the clubs is off the scale, and they've always sort of then had a difficult relationship with their county team. They have got over that hurdle. Gallagher has definitely united them, and I think the fact that they've 2 or 3 now top senior teams has helped that process. The boys have been able to get out of their own club and realise, well, there's Glen and there's Maherfelt and there's Slough-Neil, along with a few others, but those 3 big teams are supposed to the dominant teams in the senior team, and because they're all buying in, then there's a real collective energy about it. They have been building for a couple of years, but the tactics that Gallagher is using is allowing them to display fully the manic intensity that they're wanting to bring to it, and they are bringing a savage intensity.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, they remind me of ourselves in 2003.
Yeah.
Where we had come out and we were still being seen as a young team, and people were talking us up, but they weren't genuinely talking us up. They didn't really think that we were a team, because we were largely on the one team as well at that stage, and we had actually a fairly routine quarter-final victory over our Fermanagh at that stage, and then with the famous Kerry 03 semi-final of the Puke football. But again, our intensity was beyond anything that we were facing at that stage, and we bowled Kerry over with the same. Derry are bringing this massive hunger and this massive intensity, and that's a really potent thing. And they have got, if you want to do man matches and sort of tagging jobs on key players for the opposition, you've got Rogers, you've got McCaig, you've got McGinley, you've got McCluskey, like just men perfectly equipped. They've got Glass in midfield, and then they've got McGuigan up front, and they've got a host of, like, obviously Benny Heron's in phenomenal form at the minute too. but they've just got a perfect game plan to allow the energy they have within themselves come out to the full, and they are loving it. And Derry, now that they have got confident, they are going to be a big problem for all Ulster teams for the next several years. Derry's now changed. They are a changed entity completely, and for that transformation to happen seemingly within a year and a half is phenomenal. And make no bones about it, they have the chest out. They are looking at everybody else in that and saying, yeah, we can take you, we can take you, we can take you. This is our All-Ireland to lose. I have no doubt that that's where their frame of mind is at the minute. And as I say, the Galway match, as I said earlier, it's almost perfectly framed for them. They conceded 3 goals in the first half. That Galway League game up in Owenbeg, they hadn't conceded a goal previously to that in the National League. So it is a performance that was out of place. They had come into it off the back of the Roscommon game, who, remember, McGuigan had got sent off very, very strangely. And they'd lost that, or drew that Roscommon. I can't remember the loss or draw, but that Roscommon game was a real controversial game. They come into that Galway game. McGuigan was suspended. McCluskey wasn't playing, and Derry would have been a bit distracted. And Galway had a very, obviously, strong performance, particularly in the first half, which means that Derry can't be in their defensive position. They have to come out and play the game, and so all bets are off. So, yeah, Derry's going to be loving the fact about that result and knowing that they're well placed to turn it over now.
Can they do it? Can they win, Sam?
Yes, they can. Will they? I don't know. Will they? For me, depends if Kerry or Dublin find their peak form. If Kerry and Dublin don't, Derry will win, Sam.
I think the Smell series blood and Mr. Gallagher fully believes they can as well, I'd imagine. So it'll be an interesting semi-finals next weekend. And then obviously yourself, you finished up with the Antrim Senior Footballers a couple of weeks ago, and obviously bowed out to Cavan in the Ulster Championship as well. And so how would you look back on your stint with the Antrim lads?
Frustrating with the way it ended, to be honest. We ended with a run of defeats that obviously colours everything else that went before it. The previous year was obviously a good year getting promotion. And then for much of this year at the start, things were going well. A good McKenna Cup campaign and a strong start to Division 3. 5 games in, you were sitting top. And then we went, 6 games in, we were sitting top actually. And then the last 2 games, disappointing result down in Louth. We played very poorly that day and lost by 4. And then Westmeath, we were beating them well, and then just 5 minutes of madness in the second half ended up us losing that game. So that was a disappointing end to the league, and then we never really recovered from that. The championship match was exceptionally disappointing. I knew Cavan were a very strong side from video work on them. I knew they were more of a Division 2 side than a 4. I knew they were stronger, and they were much stronger both physically and in terms of personnel than anything we had played in 3. And I knew we'd be up against it, and we needed a really good performance. In the end, we actually played really, really poorly, and the combination of that, playing a strong team, and us giving a poor performance led to a horrific 70 minutes up in Corrigan Park. And then it was always damage limitation from then on. You'd sort of lost players coming into the Tailteann Cup. It was a very new team that faced Leitrim, and again got off to a bad start. Made a real good push of it in the end, but had given ourselves too much to do. So really disappointing end. Look, great lads to work with. Got a lot from them in terms of coaching and that there. Learned plenty about myself as well. But yeah, just a sense of what could have been. You were so close and ended up so far away. So that classic scenario. But there's a new group emerging there. That for the right man to come in and really push them hard. The Casement Park hopefully opening in 3 years' time. You know, that should get them boys working harder than they've ever had to work before. And we didn't push them massively in terms of physical stakes, and I think that's where they'll need to go to. But as I say, that'll be a challenge for a new man in, and they have the bones there of a really good core young group now to take that challenge on.
Absolutely, and I suppose your kind of take on maybe the split, the divide, and obviously the Tailteann Cup has been brought in. So maybe your thoughts on the Tailteann Cup, and I suppose the fairness that has kind of brought. It is success, and obviously Cavan and Westmeath have reached the final of it. So what's your kind of views on that? Maybe the divide that is and the split that is there, because obviously you competed at a very top level with Tyrone, Managerial, Antrim. You know, there is a huge divide at the end of the day, Enda.
Yeah, there is a divide, but it's every bit as hard for, maybe not for Cavan to win the Tailteann Cup, but for teams like Antrim and those other teams, it's every bit as big an achievement for them to win a Tailteann Cup as it is for a Tyrone or somebody else to win a Sam Maguire. The challenge is the same, and the commitment those players show actually is also the same. I think the profile that the Tailteann Cup can bring teams, we're already sort of seeing it now. That helps children in the county get enthused about playing football. It helps children get out on their club pitches. It helps the profile of the county. It helps sponsorship. It helps stuff being built around the county team. So it's a very positive cycle to get involved in. Critically, for the likes of Cavan and Westmeath, as they'll have seen, you get 6 to 8 additional weeks of good championship training, and that's the best training you do all year. And you get 6 to 8, maybe 5, 6 championship matches under your belt as well. Like, that's massive to enjoy a good championship run. Listen, football, no matter how much you give it, it tends to hit you and hurt you more times than you actually end up in the winners' enclosure. So that you might play a 10-year inter-county career, and most of those you'll end up with bad seasons or disappointing seasons. This gives you a chance for a highlight, for a real proper highlight. Getting playing in Croke Park is massive. Every opportunity for those players, that's to be welcomed. The prize money and the thoughts of a team holiday, the thoughts of awards night, the thoughts of proper recognition for those players, brilliant. And I think it will build into something. I think the landscape now and social media coverage, podcast coverage, all of that there is very different to what it was in the Tommy Murphy era. And I think this competition will be given plenty of light. I think it's critical. It's built into TV coverage plans. It needs those live games to build that coverage as well. But if you stick to it, I think it'll give you as many really good games as the senior championship will give you. There's a few tweaks I would have. I would have the winner of it getting league promotion rather than into the Sam Maguire Cup next year. I'd have them getting promoted from whatever level they are in the league.
Okay.
I would keep it straight knockout championship rather than a round robin league. But as long as it's sort of, and I would have the final being played on All-Ireland final weekend and have it on the Saturday and the senior final on the Sunday. Just to have a real festival and for the supporters to be heading down to Dublin on All-Ireland final weekend and experiencing all of that, and the players experiencing all of that. But I think there is more positive than negative. Is it the finished article? No. I think from the start of the year, you should know whether you're in it or not. So if you're Division 1 and 2, you're not in it. If you're Division 3 and 4, then you're in it, because for too much of the year, teams are talking about trying to avoid the Tailteann Cup, avoid this, avoid it, and you only end up there by failing at your other goals. And I don't think it'll always struggle to become an aspirational thing if you can only end up there by failing in other things. So I would tweak that. And then the issue is, can it ever really reach its true extent with the provincial championships being shoehorned into the middle of it? So you go from playing your league to be playing in your big championship to losing in your big championship and then going into this other championship.
That's yeah.
It's not, if you were drawing up competition structures, that's not how you would draw it up. The provincial championships are there because of their history, and obviously in Ulster because of their quality. But I struggle. It still feels all the time as the more the main competitions change, the provincial championships become more and more of an oddity, and you're explaining why they're there when it doesn't seem to make sense that they are there in terms of actual competition structure. But I think the GAA, they've brought in steps that they've been able to get over the line. I think people can only stomach so much change at any one time, maybe, and then see how it develops. But I think in the longer term view, I think there's a few other further competition changes to see. But the need for the Tailteann Cup, I wouldn't agree with the third level beyond that. The need for a Tailteann Cup is there, and I think it can become a really, really credible competition.
I suppose, and what was it kind of like managing Antrim, obviously, for the couple of years that you did do it, like, and obviously we're kind of talking off air, like maybe the changing standards a bit of pace, like, was it enjoyable? Was there any kind of struggles, throughout, or like, how was it all, I suppose?
Yeah, plenty of struggles, but enjoyable overall, definitely enjoyable. I had a good team around me: Sean Kelly, Stephen O'Neill, Stephen Quinn, and then the backroom sort of support team were brilliant. I have to say, Benny Devlin came in as goalkeeper coach this year, and he was excellent, to be fair. And so that element of it was really enjoyable. The lads were good to deal with. Plenty of difficult conversations, as any manager will have. And just at times you just seen I suppose the difficulty in stepping up and raising to the pressure that maybe as you start succeeding more, that then there's more pressure with that and you have to continue stepping up, and I think we failed to do that, which was disappointing. But huge learning curve, massive amount of work. Like, it just completely takes up every bit of headspace you have, every week and hour. If you mightn't be physically doing the work, but you're always thinking about it. You're always taking calls. You have 36 odd players who each individually want to be looked after and want to know what you're feeling and want encouragement, and each individual player wants looked after individually. Then you've got your management team, and each of them want to feel involved and valued. And then you've got your backroom team who all need to feel involved and valued and understand their roles and feel appreciated for their roles. Then you've got the county board, and you've got your sponsors, and you've got the media. And you have all of that, and you're the one person on top of that that's supposed to be running all of that, aware of that, on top of everything. So it's a big task. Whether I succeeded or not, I don't know. But I give it, as with everything, you just give it your best and see how it goes, and then you take your lessons from it and you move on.
Absolutely. I suppose, and like, is the game in a good place, do you feel, at the minute? Because obviously, like, we're on the back for really, I suppose, up and downs in the kind of quarterfinals. We'd one good game out of the 4, you could really say. So do you feel the game's in a good place at the minute, Enda?
Brilliant. I think it is more interesting tactically than it has ever been. I think the permutations that you can see, kickouts, offensively, defensively, the skill level, the athleticism, it is all quite phenomenal, actually, if we sit back and don't beat ourselves with too hard of a brush. I feel the truly defensive system that, say, the likes of Derry are coming with this year, it is too successful. It remains successful. It remains really difficult to break down. None of the rule changes that have been mentioned or have been brought in, the likes of the forward mark, I never thought they would deal with it, and they haven't. It still remains a really effective tactic, and I think the next game will also show that, because for me, Galway, for example, the only real way that seems to have been successful before is to mirror it and then hope that you come out on top of a chess match, or get your noses in front of the other team. Derry would have to come out at you. So I still think if we want to avoid that, then the rule changes still have to be worked at. And people talk about limiting hand passes or forcing teams to kick pass or putting shot clocks, or all that only increases the success rate of the blanket defence, because you're forcing the team on the ball, you're forcing them to do stuff with it, which means that turnovers, which is what the blanket defensive is to work on. So, and yet in some ways it is the one tactic that makes many teams competitive. If you see it at club level, teams that maybe won't be competitive, they can be competitive against big teams if they get themselves really well organised. So in ways, it's quite nice to then force other teams to try and break us down, and it does bring a level of tactical intrigue that has been good. But if it is such very, say Derry win the All-Ireland this year, we're right back into the club teams throughout the country doing it. And when two teams are doing it, it ain't good. But at the minute, over the past couple of years, we haven't really seen that too often. We may see it in the semi-final against Galway. It'll be really interesting if that comes to pass. So, as it stands at the minute, the game's in phenomenal shape. But as it stands at the minute, I don't think we have found a solution to a really defensive setup. But look, you could say the same as soccer. Like, when a team decides to park the bus, they dictate the game. And at the minute, Derry's dictating the game.
Absolutely, and I suppose I have to ask you about Tyrone after winning the All-Ireland last year. What you feel maybe was, I suppose, the problem this year? And obviously we've seen 7 to 8 players leave the panel, went out in the whimper in the Ulster Championship, and you could very much say the All-Ireland, the league campaign wasn't even great itself. And I know it's really hard to back it up, and you know yourself being involved in Tyrone teams over the years, but what you feel was the crack this year?
Yeah, just they just never got going, came back late off the holiday, had a few injuries, were sluggish to get going, and then we're always hoping that they would click. But you had several players that were in phenomenal form last year. Not only did they not hit those same peaks, but they didn't hit their even normal level. They were off form. And then that combined with the loss of several players from the panel who decided to step away, and that loss of an age, that winning your All-Ireland medal and getting all the pats on the back and getting all the plaudits and getting told how great they are, all of that does take the edge, does take that hunger away from you. And they're not the first team, as you say, to face that. So it was always going to be a difficult one for Tyrone. The target was on their back right throughout the season. The target was on their back. They won last year's All-Ireland. They sort of broke out, slightly came out of nowhere to win it, but won it nonetheless in brilliant fashion, particularly the semi-final and final. But then it was always going to be difficult to back them up. And then several things transpired to make it almost impossible for them. So I think actually the early stop, getting put out of their misery a bit earlier, whilst it was a difficult pill to take, and getting back into the club football, which is really, really strong in Tyrone, and letting all the players have a good break. You've got an All-Ireland winning under-20 side there with some exceptional players within it. So I think overall in Tyrone, we'll take our All-Ireland win, we'll take our poor year this year, and we'll know that we're still in a fairly good place. But within Ulster, the competition has just got a whole lot stronger.
That's what I'm saying.
You've went from 3 teams, that sort of
4 or 5
of Donegal, Monaghan, and ourselves and Tyrone. You've now got Derry and Armagh, and I'm pretty sure Cavan, just with the age profile of their team and off the back, I'm pretty sure they want to be making a dent too. So suddenly you've definitely 5 top teams and Cavan knocking at the door. So Ulster is going to be very, very interesting for the next few years.
I suppose, like, what do you feel maybe like happening? I know obviously winning and getting the Holy Grail last year, like for the Tyrone lads. Do you feel maybe like when it got back to try and get back on the horse? Do you feel maybe like another year of this and the hard training, the slog, and a lot of lads did kind of step away? Like, what do you feel maybe happened?
No, I think you go back at it and you convince yourself, right, back at it, and right, we'll put in the same work, and yes, we do want it again, and absolutely, of course, you'd want another All-Ireland. But that sense of really having to prove yourself, of really having to measure up to some other team, that you've got some other team up above you that you're aiming for, that you're looking to chop them boys down, and you're preparing for the day that you'll really, from right at the start of the year, you prepare for the day that you'll take on that top team. Whenever you're the top team, that mentality slightly changes, or changes massively, obviously. So it was difficult for Tyrone. And as I say, the late holiday now probably in hindsight didn't help that. And I think because boys wanted at a certain stage of the career that they wanted, they sort of felt maybe it was the tin hat on several years of efforts and several years of nearly misses. And so this was the result of a long journey rather than the start of a real drive on. But they'll have been well hurt with the defeats this year, and the challenge is now very much there to reassert themselves, not on the All-Ireland stage, but within Ulster. You've got several neighbours on your own borders who have got much more confident of themselves. So as I say, that should make Tyrone training a wee bit livelier this winter.
Absolutely. Well, we know that we all know about Brian Dew's training methods apparently, so it'll be an interesting winter for the lads. So, and next year, like obviously, they did win an under-20 All-Ireland title, so there's 2 candidates coming Enda. So I wouldn't just be writing the obituary just yet, Enda.
No, I would take our situation ahead of plenty of other counties now. There is real talent there. A lot of those under-21 or under-20 players were really excellent. There's a good under-17 team as well. So the level of football in Tyrone, and even my wee lads are playing there now, primary school and in around the under-11. The level and quality of football and the level of training and coaching that's happening in every club, and the numbers that clubs are getting out, and the quality in the schools, it is unbelievable, the landscape that young fellas are playing in now, and the levels that they have to obtain to even count, to be even making their own club teams. You have to be you have to be taking your football fairly serious, and they are manic about it. Like it's so, when you really step back and look at it, like I was at a Tyrone club game, just my own club, the week after we got beat by Leitrim and ended up the Antrim season. And there was more at that Tyrone club game than would have been at any of the Antrim league games, if you know what I mean. There was just this phenomenal crowd, and you could tell the 2 senior teams out there that were playing that day really seriously coached. All the players taking their game really, really seriously. So the game's in good health in Tyrone. and we should always, I think, for the foreseeable future, have a pretty competitive senior side, and certainly with a management team in place there that I've no doubt will have full intentions of making it so.
Absolutely. Last few, Enda, you've been brilliant with your time. What's the future hold for Mr. McGinley?
Future, with myself and my wife have a 5th bar arriving in September, so the future is looking tired. It's looking manic and noisy, but please God, full of smiles and a bit of craziness. So I think it's the talk about blanket defence and pull and circling the wagons. Well, it's time to circle the wagons round home at the minute, and please God, everything will go well on that front. And all on that, just getting in around the club, working with the underage, and out there and enjoying that.
Last question: what players are exciting at the minute? Like, what kind of, I suppose, if you were going to a game at the weekend, then like, what kind of players would you nearly just pay money to go watch?
Any of those boys we've been mentioning. I love Walsh as a footballer. The way obviously had that ball. Clifford, I think, and Conor O'Callaghan. For me, those are the 3 top most exciting players to watch, simply because they don't play the game with any constraints. They play the game with the freedom, and their skill level is stunning. Round home, look, I was watching last night. Derek Hanneman ran in from maybe 50-60 yards out with speed and finished it to the net, and it was just a joy.
His dad must be good, Enda. I get the feeling he's good.
Well, his dad was good, but there's plenty on the mother's side there too, as she would let you know, and the majorities would let you know. But look, them 2 lads are a credit to themselves. But Petey Hart was immense last night for Ergal too, and the club football in Tyrone, as I say, is something else. The level of it is something else, and we've got a championship campaign ahead. Where there's just so many teams that are going for it. So from a Tyrone point of view, you are blessed every week heading out to those league games. Like, it is just brilliant football, brilliant facilities. All the clubs have great facilities. You're going watching games and really good pitches. You've got a summer to look forward to. So it was interesting. As disappointed as you were with the Tyrone senior team going out, you also knew that it allowed the club football really full on participation, and I think we've got plenty to look forward to from that point of view.
Absolutely. Enda McGinley, thanks a million for joining me this week. And of course, this podcast is brought to you by orgarech.com and Atak.ie. Use the code JMac podcast to get 15% off on orgarech.com and get the best skins, gloves, equipment on Atak.ie. Be attack minded. Enda, thanks a million. Enjoy number 5 and enjoy the semi-finals next weekend.
No problem. Thanks, John.
Cheers, Enda.